For more on this now, I'm joined by Sky News Political Editor Andrew Clennell. You saw that audience, it's an ABC audience at that. He thought it was the silver bullet. I think the Prime Minister might be disappointed if that was a focus group. I don't think it's going to sway a whole lot of voters. And I think if you look at the record, and I just went through that now, bulk billing rates were worse under this term of the Labor government than they have been for about 25 years. And if you look at all the stuff about health funding too, I've gone back through all the old Department of Health budget papers, and there's not the cuts that Peter Dutton is claimed to have made. So I think the government's got to be careful here.
Well, I think you're right. They thought it'd be a silver bullet. I really think they must have thought Peter Dutton wouldn't match it. And, you know, by 8 a.m. Sunday morning on Sunday Agenda, Angus Taylor said we're matching it. Peter Dutton came out during Anthony Albanese's speech on Sunday and said the same thing. In fact, we're giving a little bit more to mental health. And that was kind of the end of the attempt at, jet charging a Labor campaign. So they've got to kind of start again in a sense. And they've been out all week on this Medicare campaigning, but it's like, well, the other guy's doing it anyway. What else you got? So I think they're in a bit of strife, the government, to be frank, Peter. I mean, they would have seen, from what I hear, the tracking polling hasn't moved in 2 weeks. They've had a rate cut. They've had a big announcement. They're not shifting it to where they want it to be. And, Peter Dutton's not there yet, and there's a long way to go, and it's tight, let's face it. But Anthony Albanese would want to lift his performance and come up with a bit more. I mean, I've been saying, some Labor people said to me today, that was the big one. And I'm sort of saying, is that it? Because I don't think that's enough to get, I think if you can forget Labor in majority government at this point, pretty much, but, they'd struggle to get in minority government with just that.
That's been gone for 18 months.
So,
well, the interesting thing is, Andrew, I was talking to people in the seat of Aston, so key marginal here in Victoria. This is Indian community representatives, and they have had calls coming in to homes running a scare campaign on Medicare since about Christmas time, right? So that was laying the groundwork for the government then to come in and solve the problem. It was the hallmarks of the 2007 campaign over the weekend. So I was there at the time in 2007, at the end of the Howard government. There was a terrific tax package there by Peter Costello, all very complex, the sort of thing you can only do with the resources of Treasury to cost it. And within a nanosecond, Kevin Rudd matched it. And so the wind went out of our sails pretty quickly. We all felt really flat. He was me-tooing us and all the big stuff. And of course, history says he won in the landslide. So the question will be, sometimes campaigns don't matter, right? Sometimes the campaign, it's all over by the shouting. This one will matter. And it'll come down to how well the Prime Minister and his front bench campaign, and the back office too, and, the campaign team, and how well Peter Dutton and his front bench, who are not as tested as they should be, in my view, how well they campaign.
Yeah, and don't forget, Kevin Rudd was ahead 57-43. So he ended up something like 53-47. So it's a little bit different because Peter Dutton's probably 52-48 at the moment, which is an improvement on a couple of weeks ago, let's face it, and he's ahead. But the government will hope, Labor will hope, they can get that 2% or so to an incumbent that you can kind of get in a campaign if you perform well against, as you point out, an inexperienced opposition.
Can he?
But that's the question. If that's your best hope, I'd be pretty worried if I was working in a government office right now that I might be out of a job. Let's face it. So that's the keys to government question. He
had a shocker in 2022, as we know. He had an absolute shocker during the Voice campaign. I think, you can see in the reported stories of his colleagues saying, please help me here, don't come anywhere near my electorate, Prime Minister. Usually they're gagging for the Prime Minister to visit. This time round they're saying, keep away, you're basically electoral poison. I think that's telling.
But it's tight enough, that's the thing. So at the moment, Dutton's got the upper hand, but it's rare to see a campaign being so critical to the outcome, and that's what we're seeing right now. Or we're about to see when we finally get this show on the road, Peter.
What about this yarn today that, somehow there's insider trading when he was in opposition? I made the point, you can't have insider trading unless you're an insider. He wasn't the shadow finance minister. He wasn't the shadow treasurer. He wasn't the leader. That was Malcolm Turnbull. I know at the time who got Treasury briefings. I think they were pretty poor briefings, if I'm really honest, because I know that Malcolm Turnbull thought they weren't worth the time he was giving them, and he was ringing his mates at Goldman Sachs in New York to get information on where things might go with the GFC. Well, Peter Dutton wasn't anywhere near that. He was over there as the shadow health minister. 16 years on, this is just reheating an old story, isn't it?
Where's the evidence, I guess, would be what I would say. There's look at this coincidence, but Peter Dutton might have been reading newspapers and think there'd be a bank bailout. You know what I mean? So there's no, I think you said Joe Hockey was briefed, and Joe Hockey and Peter Dutton are mates, but no one's suggesting Joe Hockey told Peter Dutton. I mean, he's not even in government. Murray Watt says,
no.
Is it a coincidence? Well, it could be, because he might just be a savvy financial operator who says, well, they're going to bail out the banks. It's a good time to invest. And then he declares it. So, yeah, there's not enough in it to make a decent hit. What it does make me wonder, because I have seen this sort of phenomenon before, Peter, is this the first and they've got something bigger to try to hit him with? Because this isn't going to make a damn difference. And you'd hope for their sake, that dirt unit, they have something a little bit better to hit him with, because this just doesn't get anywhere. I mean, I didn't even bother reporting on it today, frankly. I just thought, well, whatever. 2009, no evidence. So, but I think it is a bit of a sign they're going to go pretty personal in the next few weeks, and let's see what they come up with. And when you go that way, it can backfire on you, of course, as you know. You want it to be a clean hit, otherwise it can come back and hit you, Peter.
Do you think it's going to be called this weekend, Andrew?
No, I do not. And I reported today the cabinet meeting's being called for Monday. And I think that it was an option to call it this weekend, but I think they've had no lift in the polls from the rate cut, so they've decided not. There's too many reasons against it, such as the WA election. I don't think the Prime Minister's made up his mind, but the fact that a day or so ago they flagged to ministers that there was to be a cabinet meeting next Monday tells you we're at least going till then, which starts to push April 5 out of the picture. And maybe the Sunday after Roger Cook, or if they get together and look at the numbers and don't like them, maybe you just go through the budget, believe it or not, and go to May and just hope something happens your way. The feeling is that's not the case, but with no decision yet made by the PM, who knows?
Yeah, I do think it's bizarre that they called a cabinet meeting. They're usually scheduled, and they're scheduled well in advance. This must be one that is out of cycle, an unscheduled one that's put in the diary.
We scheduled yesterday.
Why is that happening? Why is that? Yeah, exactly. So why is that happening? Yeah, that's interesting. All right, well, we're on election watch right now, aren't we? Thanks, Andrew.